All right, welcome everyone to the Kubeflow Pipelines community meeting. Today's date is June 4th, 2025, and this meeting is governed by the CNCF Code of Conduct. The meeting is recorded and will be uploaded to the Kubeflow YouTube account after the call has ended. There's a Kubeflow Pipelines YouTube playlist that you can check out for all of the Kubeflow Pipelines related calls. So, yeah, let's jump right into it. We always start off with the introductions for new attendees. So if there's anybody new in the call that would like to introduce themselves, the floor is yours. All right, cool. So just going to keep reminding everyone in the community calls that we are looking to sunset KFP V1 support by the end of 2025. This is the V1 support that exists in KFP V2 today, and that would include V1 APIs and what have you. I'll link the GitHub discussion. There's a GitHub discussion page about it as well, where the announcement is listed. So last call, we recognized that there are some requirements that we are putting on for removing such removing the V1 support, and those were all very much security related. So we have acknowledged those, and we will try to meet those obligations before we sunset it. Halber, you have the next point.
Yeah, we're Valentina, the release manager of Kubeflow. She's mounting the team for the next Kubeflow release. And we're looking for volunteers for the liaison for pipelines. For the latest release for Kubeflow 1.10, I was the pipelines liaison. But for the next one, I won't be able to do this. So I'm looking for volunteers to work on this next release. It should require 1 hour a week, 1 or 2 hours a week. We usually have we used to have one meeting a week, but now we're having one meeting every 2 weeks. So yeah, it's not something that requires too much time. It's a good opportunity for knowing other community members, for networking with the release team. So if anyone is interested in this, let us know.
What is the work typically require?
Typically is define the next release, which we do usually in this call. So we have the milestones for the pipelines release, and we let Valentina know the status of this, and she helps us to unblock anything that may be blocking and this kind of stuff. And in the end of each release, each liaison records a video for the component, and someone join all of these videos into one release video for the entire platform.
You can put me on, tell them that I can be the liaison for this. I can probably just do it for ever. I think I should be doing it. So it's who do I need to contact for this?
You can contact Valentina.
Okay.
Valentina. And next week we're going to have another meeting. I can send you the link, and I can join as well.
Okay.
To introduce you to the team.
That makes sense. Cool. Any other comments about this? Questions?
Not from my side.
Okay. Thanks, Albert.
No
And
problem.
thank you for doing a great job liaisoning last release.
No problem, and thank you for volunteering this.
do we know a date for the next KF release?
I don't think we have yet.
Okay. All right. Before we start talking about docs, Chen, did you get my email about read the docs?
Sorry, I probably missed that.
It's just that could I get access to the read the docs
Oh, I
account?
see.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'll look into that.
Yeah, in the email I gave you the username, which is the same as my GitHub handle. So
Okay, yes. Sorry, I was out of office for 2 days. I probably buried it in my inbox, so but
no worries.
I'll
Yeah.
find that. Yeah.
Cool. So extend read the docs permissions. We can also do it for Alex too when he's back. Or
Okay.
okay. For the next topic, I'd like us to talk about the KFP docs and having KFP repo be the source of truth for the content. I've brought this topic up in the past, and I just want us to kind of get some next concrete steps and how we want to proceed on this front. So I think there's I think two problems. One is I think there's two problems that I think we need to address at a very high level. One is the maintenance of the dock and the overhead associated with it. And I'm talking about like the not the SDK docs. I'm talking about like the Kubeflow website docs. So Kubeflow website docs. Something about the pipeline stocks over here. So for those that don't know, these are stored and managed in the Kubeflow pipeline website repository. And then there's also the problem of like the doc content is I would say it's subpar, frankly. It could use a lot of improvement. They're not unrelated, but I do think that one is the second one we can certainly address, I think, but I think the maintenance one is I would like us to focus on and eventually also address like how do we collectively improve the KFB docs altogether. So for the maintenance of the doc, I think it's a pretty big overhead to try to update docs whenever we're sending a new feature in or any changes in. You have to make a pull request to the Kubeflow pipelines repository for the change itself, and then you need to send that change to the Kubeflow website repository. And doesn't sound simple, but it adds all this additional overhead. You have to ensure because it is an open source project, the person in like um, the person can making the contribution can make the code changes but then fail to follow up on the doc changes, and we can't make this a requirement as part of one PR that like you have to add docs as you're doing your code contributions. So having said that, I would like that we find a solution where we have the documentation sourced from the Kubeflow Pipelines repository. Any questions so far?
Not a question, but +1 on this because also it sometimes is confusing for users where to create an issue. So today they have to create the issue in the website repo, and sometimes this confuses users.
Right, 100%. And you're creating, and then they get redirected to the Kubeflow pipelines repository, and then they make an issue there, but the pull request is going to the website repository. So it really doesn't make any sense, right? In my opinion. Okay, let's talk solutions. So, Chen, in the email that you probably missed, I did suggest that we consider making the SDK read the docs as the primary source for not just the SDK documentation, but also the Kubeflow website concept documentation as well. I did get some resistance on this, and I'm not getting resistance on the fact that we should store documentation in the Kubeflow website repository, but there is precedent for like some projects do like to have their Python package documentation as a separate thing, and their concept documentation as a separate thing. So, and then there's also that's one point about that. The other point is that we have like SE scores associated with the documentation that is on the website, and there's concern about losing all of that. So, and we would have to rebuild it again. And users will continue getting redirected to pages on Google and other search engines that are just like dead links if we were to move them all out. So there's concerns around that too. So that's one that's one solution. The other alternative is to just copy all of those markdowns in the website repository to the Kubeflow pipelines repository. And then we come up with some solution on how to sync them back periodically. We can use things like Git submodules, or we can have a sync job, whatever. That's a separate concern. But we essentially keep the original documentation in the Kubeflow pipelines repository, and then we can somehow, during Kubeflow releases or what have you, we would sync them. So those are the two options that I have right now today. So one is consolidate all KFP documentation to read the docs. So this one uses Sphinx immaterial theme, or continue using website docs, but source all the markdowns, docs, content from KFP and periodically sync to website. Is that clear? So any opinions, strong opinions, objections about this?
Regarding using the reader docs, to avoid breaking the SEO, we have the redirects in website that we can use. So old links would redirect to the reader docs links.
Right. So we could, but we would then we would have to keep the pages as is and like the tree as is, right? Or I guess we could redirect all the paths.
We could have one single page saying that all the docs are now in reader docs, and redirect all the old links to reader docs. That could be an option.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Mayor already knows my opinion on this, but I definitely prefer like continue using the website docs, but just have the content live in the KFP repo, and we either periodically sync like we do for the Kubeflow manifests repo, or we use a Git submodule in the website repo, and then we don't have to actually do any syncing. We just change the commit that each Kubeflow release points to.
Yeah, I like that option better as well.
Yeah, and for the main reason someone was saying something.
My question is, what's going to be the easiest for people to add more documents to, even if it's a long setup, to do the syncing or whatever. Once it's set up, it should, be automatic, whatever. What would the easiest be in order to keep the documents up to date, to get people to do it? And I think one of the easiest things is to have the documents in the same repo as the code.
We're doing that regardless. That's what you're saying is basically the whole point of what we're trying to accomplish, which is we keep the documentation all in one spot. So either one of these, we'll be accomplishing that. It's more about like, do we want to use option A or option B to accomplish that, right? It's a valid question to ask. I think that does one make it more difficult, even though they're all located in the same repo in both solutions? I would say probably no. One not nice thing about Hugo, which is the theme, is that there's a lot of Hugo-y syntax that in the markdowns themselves. But we don't have to use them if we don't want to. So because it looks kind of ugly when you look at it from the GitHub UI. Any other opinions, strong opinions about this? I'm personally leaning towards just syncing it, given all the discussions that I've had with people.
Yeah, and I think it's slightly more of a pain for us to set up, but at the end of the day, it's a better user experience for the user. They're still going to the Kubeflow website. The Google search results are still working. It's the same theme. So I think the user experience is better. But yeah, it is a pain to set up the initial automation for it or initial flow.
One thing that would, I agree. One thing that would be nice that I would like to have is a separate deployment, a dev deployment of just the KFV. Actually, should it just be dev? I don't know. But like at the very least, it should be a dev deployment of what's in master branch. So we can always see prior to a release what the docs are going to look like. Now, the question also is, we have separate KFP releases that happen in a different cadence than Kubeflow releases. Does that impact this? I would say yes.
I mean, that's not that bad, right? So as part of our KFP release, part of it is just make sure that the documentation and the Kubeflow website is updated to point at the latest KFP docs.
Yeah, but you'll never be able to like filter on just specific KFP versions for documentation. It would always be Kubeflow versions and whatever KFP is. You could have like 2 KFP releases, for example, between like KF versions, right? So you'll never be able to like paginate between those versions for KFP specifically and see those docs for them.
I mean, we're talking about possibly publishing GitHub pages as well for KFP directly, right? So then maybe that entire version history is maintained for just the KFP published docs, but in the Kubeflow documentation, it's either master, which is pointed at whatever the latest KFP releases, or it's a tag Kubeflow docs version, which is just whatever KFP version was released for that Kubeflow version.
Okay, I'm gonna put that as a for something for us to consider, not a requirement. Okay, so if any objections to doing it this way, where we do like a sync operation and we keep things in the Hugo world for all the concept docs, and then we'll keep SDK as a read the docs. We don't want to. We thought about like combining them into Hugo, but Sphinx has really nice support for Python modules, and Hugo does not. Not that I know of. So I think we'll just keep it. I know, Matt, you looked into combining them. Maybe it's something we can revisit. What was your experience with that?
It wasn't hard to add it to Hugo, like the rendered doc strings, but it wasn't as nice, I guess, the rendered output as Sphinx. And Sphinx seems like it's a purpose-built tool for it. So there's definitely ways to do it. We could look into it. I don't see it as too much of a barrier to have them separate because it seems to be a common pattern that you have the nice documentation for like learning about the product, but then once you get to like developer centric documentation, read the docs does it. Like read the docs is often used.
Yeah, so one example of a website doing it like you have everything in one spot is like menu documentation. Where's their SDK? So like your SDK is here, but you also have your concept docs in the same spot. So that's nice. Other projects keep that entire thing separate. So whichever, I think we can keep it separate, at least for now. If we can solve this one problem already, I feel like that's such a big win. Okay, I'm gonna say decision. Go with option 2. And we'll start with the process of bootstrapping like a Hugo GitHub pages as well. And I think we can just like literally just copy everything over. And Anish, I think you reorganized some of the doc structuring so that we can have separate SDK docs that are SDK, and now we can also have like concept docs as a sibling. And then we can just copy what exists in the website over to here. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sounds good.
Any last thoughts on this? Okay, cool. How much time do we have? All right. I have a small demo of a proof of concept that I've been looking at, working on, and it has to do with a work which we have some integration between Kubeflow pipelines and external metadata trackers. Here, I used MLflow as an example, but I think we would like to abstract this to we could abstract this to multiple metadata experimentation trackers like AimStack and what have you, because they all do very similar things, right? So I'll start by showing a deployment of MLflow I have. So I already have some experiments created on the left. You can see those. And I have a Kubeflow pipeline instance deployed over here. You can just ignore some of the pipelines that I already have. And so the way it works is instead of like experiments for Kubeflow pipelines, what I did was I tied experiments to the MLflow concept of experiments, which is very similar. You have experiments and you which you group runs within. And what the integration does is when you create a Kubeflow pipeline run, it will create the MLflow. It will also track that run within MLflow, and it would track it as an MLflow run, and it would run it as part of the experiment that you created via Kubeflow pipelines. And then it will also log the pipeline inputs, and it will also log the metrics. So here I only did metrics. I didn't do any other sort of artifact. Just wanted to show like how you can log metrics and be able to visualize them via MLflow with a run that was started via Kubeflow pipelines. So I have an example here. It's a RAG pipeline. It does a very simple. It will do a fetch documents, and then it executes a RAG operation, and then it would do an evaluate where it generates a blue score. And then I can go ahead and create a run. So everything is essentially looks the same. For experiments, I can create a new experiment, and I'll call it my ML flow experiment, give it some description, right? So what this does is under the hood, it's actually created an experiment in ML flow instead of Kubeflow pipelines. And you can see that over here. And then I can go ahead and put in my input parameters. So here I have a temperature and then I have a top K. So, and just start it. And the run within Kubeflow pipelines is not, you should think of the runs as separate like concepts. Here it's a Kubeflow pipeline run that is as part of an orchestration process, right? But then we also have runs in the metadata tracker MLflow, and that is more similar to our Kubeflow pipelines executions, right? And you can see when I go to Kubeflow pipelines, I have created a under the hood, a MLflow run was created, and now let's go ahead and executing the different components, and those are being executed as nested runs within the root pipeline run. So this is kind of analogous to our Kubeflow pipelines context, which is the parent run. And then we have the components that are running as their separate drivers. So those map to Kubeflow MLflow runs. So I have the different steps that are executing over here. I'll just go ahead and show you what it looks like once it has completed. I think I have one somewhere. Yeah, so this is what it looks like once it's done. You can see that the different input parameters are showing up here. And now you get the benefit of everything that like MLflow provides, right? So I can show you I can decide which parameters I want to see. I can show you my output metrics that are shown over here. I have an example where I ran it with a parallel 4. right? So over here, I have a couple of different runs where I'm the same pipeline, but with like a permutation of the different input parameters, something like what you might do for hyperparameter tuning. And for that, I send it to this experiment over here, and you can see what that looks like within a parent run. I have multiple different runs that I ran with the different permutations of the parameters, and then I can go ahead and compare them, and I can get a coordinates plot and just visualize my metrics that way. And it's a very basic example of like kind of things we could do. Uh, and really there was not that much overhead in adding such a support. We just had to kind of think about how to map executions to runs. So any questions? Cool. So if you find that interesting and you find this type of integrations in Kubeflow pipelines worthwhile, or if you have strong opinions about it, we'd love to hear your thoughts. So I'll probably provide something a bit more formal in the form of our cap. I'm just trying to gather feedback and thoughts on, is this something that folks would like to see more of, or what direction would they like to see it go? So express your feedback in Slack, or I don't know, maybe I can start a discussion, GitHub discussion about it if you have strong opinions to add there. But yeah, that's it. That is the end of the agenda items. Anybody else have any other topics that they would like to discuss? All right, cool. We can end 10 minutes early. So thanks everyone for joining. See you all next time. Take care.
I thought you were talking about milestones, but
Oh
well.
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we'll do it next time.
All right, bye.